You're not going to believe this, but Rebel News was just hit with a new hate speech complaint by one of Canada's out-of-control human rights tribunals. Please watch this video till the end and share it far and wide, because I'll show you how you can help us fight back.
So what you're doing is you are putting Rebel News on trial because Jonathan Yaniv says our editorials violate the law.
Nigger, 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 fuck you.
Will you be pleading guilty? What?
Go.
No,
Go.
don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Hey, stop. Go away from me. Go away.
Huh? My iPad.
Why don't you?
Now. Huh? Go away. Are you kidding me? You, go away. That's assault. Go away. You just smashed your cane over my head.
Rebel Media. Rebel Media. Hey. No, no.
Hey, keep your hands off me.
Do you have any weapons on you?
Go away.
Hey, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Go away.
Don't touch me.
Get out.
Stay away from me.
Go away.
Go away from me. Go. Back off.
Go.
Do you have anything to say to Mr. Funk's family?
Go.
Back off.
Go.
Back off.
You know what fuck off means?
Control your dog. Don't threaten me.
But why are you allowing him to use the Human Rights Tribunal, which is meant to protect people from being kicked out of an apartment or protect people from being fired for racism? Why are you letting him use that to silence journalists?
The bar to be having a complaint accepted and moving forward to screen it in, it merely needs to allege a violation of the Human Rights Code.
This Human Rights Tribunal is targeting our news reports about a transgender bully named Jonathan Yaniv, calling our news reports hate speech and threatening us with huge fines and a publication ban. I'll show you the full complaint. I also phoned up the Human Rights Tribunal investigator who sent me the complaint, and I recorded that conversation. He told me some astonishing things. I'll play some of that recording for you in a moment because I want you to see just how bad it is. You can see the full complaint against us and listen to my full conversation with that investigator at a special website I've set up called repealsection7.com. That's because Section 7 is the part of the Human Rights Code that gives them the power to censor journalists. I hope you agree we've got to repeal Section 7. This has happened to me before, by the way. In a famous case almost 20 years ago, I was prosecuted by another Human Rights Commission for republishing the Danish cartoons of Mohammed in a magazine I ran back then. I was investigated and prosecuted for 900 days by more than a dozen government bureaucrats and lawyers just for showing our readers the cartoons that were the center of the international news story. Back then, I brought a video camera into my interrogation because I knew no one would believe me if I told them the government was interrogating me about our journalism. Here, take a quick look at what it was like. Now, I was in my 30s back then and much more handsome.
I'm here at this interrogation under protest. It is my position that the government has no legal or moral authority to interrogate me or anyone else for publishing these words and pictures. That is a violation of my ancient and inalienable freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and in this case, religious freedom and the separation of mosque and state. It is especially perverted that a bureaucracy calling itself the Alberta Human Rights Commission would be the government agency violating my human rights. So I will now call those bureaucrats the Commission, or the HRC, since to call the Commission a Human Rights Commission is to destroy the meaning of those words.
Well, I'm in my 50s now, and it's happening to me all over again. Back then, it was for publishing cartoons. Now it's for publishing news reports about Jonathan Yaniv, Canada's worst transgender activist, a predator, a convicted criminal who targets children. Yaniv claims to be a woman and goes by the name Jessica Simpson now. You probably have seen the guy before. He's out of control, and he wants to stop us from reporting on what he's doing. He first came to public attention when he would book appointments with female estheticians to get a bikini wax. He pretended to be a woman when he booked those appointments, but then he'd show up and demand that those women wax his balls. He still had his male genitalia. And if any of those women refused, Yaniv took them to the BC Human Rights Tribunal, the same agency coming for me now. He targeted those women. He extorted them. He demanded they touch his junk or he'd sue them in front of the kangaroo court. He's disgusting. But actually, it's the Human Rights Tribunal that's worse. They agreed to go after those women for him and to do so under a veil of secrecy. They're awful. Those are some of the things we reported about him doing. We also showed that he was a total fraud. For example, he pretended to be disabled so he could get free stuff, including free taxis around Vancouver. That's one of the things he's trying to force us to stop reporting about him. So that's the guy who's now taking me to the Human Rights Tribunal. By the way, this sort of shakedown is going to happen a lot more in Canada when Justin Trudeau passes the national censorship bill called Bill C-63. It's before Parliament right now, by the way. Right now, the censorship provision is only in a few provinces in Canada, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, but Trudeau wants to make it national. And his Bill C-63 will launch a flood of these complaints because it pays up to $20,000 to any crank, any bully, any left-wing activist for making complaints like this. It's going to target anyone who dares to criticize things like out-of-control immigration or transgender madness or really anything. It's a giant cancel culture machine that rewards nuisance complaints. So to be precise, I'm being prosecuted under Section 7 of the BC Human Rights Code, which says it's illegal to publish anything that's, quote, likely to expose a person to hatred or contempt. It's hard to believe that law is even on the books. It's not even a thought crime, it's a feelings crime. If anything you say might cause someone to feel the emotion of hate or contempt, you lose the case. Truth is not a defense, of course. A lot of true things cause hard feelings. That's life. And just showing Jonathan Yaniv's vicious conduct is going to make a lot of people feel contempt for him. Here he is just a few weeks ago using the most atrocious, racist epithets to attack our reporter Drea in Vancouver, who happens to be black. Get a load of this guy.
Nigger, 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 fuck you. I have the picture of your kid on here, by the way. You want to see? You like that? You like that, Drea? Fucking little bitch.
Yeah, can you believe that racist, bigoted bully actually complained to the Human Rights Commission about us? But the truly incredible part is that the Human Rights Tribunal took his complaint, a kooky, nutty complaint, written in all capital letters, and said, yes, this really is something we should spend public resources on. Let's go censor a news company. Check out his complaint. It's absolutely nuts. I've posted the whole thing at that website, repealsection7.com. And look at this. Yaniv filed this complaint with the Human Rights Tribunal back in March of 2021, 3.5 years ago, and yet they just sent it to us now. That's how efficiently they work at the Human Rights Tribunal. They're so stupid. I phoned up the human rights bureaucrat who sent this complaint to me. Daniel Varnals is his name. And I asked him about the delay. And I asked him if they knew that Yaniv was a nuisance litigant who just abused the legal system to harass people. I mentioned that he had filed a nuisance lawsuit against us in a real court, and that court threw it out as a junk lawsuit that it was. Here's a few snippets from that phone call.
We're very familiar with this complainant because he's a serial, vexatious litigant. He sued us in court last year, and we applied for an anti-SLAPP application. Do you know what SLAPP stands for? Strategic Litigation Against Public Participation. So he filed this nuisance suit against us. We went to the court, and the court threw out the case saying that the complainant was just doing it to be abusive and vexatious. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of some of the background of this individual, but I'm not aware of that specific.
Okay, because it's pretty clear to me that this is just another nuisance suit. And since this was filed 3.5 years ago when I was a young man still, several courts have weighed in on the complainant, not just the anti-SLAPP litigation that we won, but just a few weeks ago, we went to court to remove a false publication ban that this plaintiff had managed to convince a judge to put over he was harassing some guy and managed to convince a court to put a publication ban on it. We went to court and had the judge lift the publication ban, and the court thanked us for it because this complainant is such a serial nuisance litigant. So the reason I'm calling you is not just to say your complaint is very stale, but it's to point out that you were dealing with British Columbia's worst vexatious litigant. He's abusive of legal processes. He's using the BC Human Rights Tribunal as a weapon in a vendetta. It's not a legitimate claim. Various courts have slapped him down for abusing the system. And I want to make sure you are aware of that because he's doing the same here. What do you think about all that?
The tribunal is aware of some of what you're referencing. Nonetheless, the complaint was reviewed and accepted for processing, and it was served, and you received that service.
Can I ask who made the decision to go ahead with it? Do you know?
It is whoever screened the complaint. It's one of the tribunal has a screening process. They review it and they determine, okay, is this set forth enough that the complaint can move forward? It's done by the tribunal. There's a screening process that takes place. I can't give you the name of that individual, but it was screened and determined that it should move forward.
We are a news organization. We're not. And if you read the complaints, what Jonathan Yaniv is complaining about are news reports and editorial opinions expressed by our journalists. We're not like a landlord who kicks him out or a restaurant who refused to serve him. Like, we didn't have any interaction with him that he would have a right to, like, rent a room or something. He's using the system to complain against our freedom of speech. You realize that, right? You realize that, like, I have it in front of me here. He claims we insulted him, and perhaps we did. I'm not conceding anything. I think we were just giving our genuine opinion. But why are you allowing him to use the Human Rights Tribunal, which is meant to protect people from being kicked out of an apartment or protect people from being fired for racism? Why are you letting him use that to silence journalists?
The bar to be having a complaint accepted and moving forward to screen it in, it merely needs to allege a violation of the Human Rights Code. This person has alleged a violation of the Human Rights Code. The file has been reviewed and determined that at least it alleges that. And so it's going forward.
Obviously, we have to hire lawyers, which is part of the abuse here. Yaniv doesn't have to hire a lawyer. He just typed out his crazy manifesto in all capital letters, gave it to the government, and 3.5 years later, they decided to prosecute us with government lawyers. We, on the other hand, have to hire lawyers by ourselves. And even if we win, we don't get our legal fees back. This is the template that Trudeau's going to roll out nationally. And he's going to make it worse by actually paying people up to $20,000 per complaint. We've got to fight back. Can I please ask for your help? I'm afraid I need it. Yaniv is a kook, a total nut, a criminal, a predator, a racist, all of that. But he somehow managed to convince the BC government's Human Rights Tribunal to go after his enemies again and again. Those poor estheticians, mainly immigrant women, were crushed by Yaniv. I refuse to be crushed by him. We've got to stand up to this bully. Please do 3 things. Please go to repealsection7.com and read the complaint for yourself. See how bizarre it is. And listen to the recording of my conversation with the human rights officer who casually says, oh yeah, he knows the complainant is a nut, but he doesn't care. Listen to him say he could fine us or even ban us from publishing things he doesn't like.
So what you're doing is you are putting Rebel News on trial because Jonathan Yaniv says our editorials violate the law. So you're not claiming that we denied him a service or accommodation or anything. You're just full out saying we're not allowed to say what we said.
I'm not saying anything. I'm telling you, you can read that paragraph. It says that it is accepted for processing under the area of publication.
What could happen to me if I'm convicted here? What are the penalties? Do you know?
Well, there can be monetary compensation could conceivably be awarded to a complainant. Some kind of order not to continue to cease the discriminatory actions. There's
what you mean from our story. So you could order us not to talk about him anymore?
Well, not to discriminate, to cease the discrimination.
And share those shocking facts with your friends and family. Secondly, while you're at that website, please sign our petition to repeal Section 7 of the law. That's the censorship provision. There's a provincial election on right now in BC, and I think we could make this an election issue. I bet the NDP premier loves censorship, but the Conservative Party challenger named John Rustad, he seems like a freedom-oriented guy. And I think most Canadians are getting a little bit tired of all this censorship and political correctness, and this could be a real winning issue for Rustad. Point 3, and this is a personal favorite of me. Look, the last time I was prosecuted by the Human Rights Commission over the cartoons, it was a 3-year battle that cost me around $100,000 in legal fees to fight back. I hope this one won't be as costly, but there's no way it'll be less than $30,000. And Yaniv has to pay nothing. The government does all the prosecutions for him for free with government lawyers. If you want to help, you can chip in right there at repealsection7.com. This complaint is bad news. But if it's a wake-up call to Canadians, if we listen to this alarm, then maybe there's a silver lining to it. This is happening to me today at the hands of the BC Human Rights Tribunal. But if we don't fight back now, this could soon happen to everyone as Trudeau expands this censorship across the country. Please visit repealsection7.com now. Our freedom depends on it. A transgender extremist is taking Rebel News to a human rights tribunal to ban us from reporting about how he bullies women. If he wins, they'll censor us. I need your help to fight back. Please visit repealsection7.com to learn more.